for those not in the know, the annual Darkness into Light charity walk is set for tomorrow morning in person now for the first time in 2 years.
And joining us on the couch to talk about the great cause behind the walk are Pieta House psychotherapist Lee Kenny and Darkness into Light volunteer Sharon Murphy. Ladies, good morning. Thank you for coming in. You've got a long day ahead of you and a long night.
Busy, yeah.
Sharon, we might chat to you, start with chatting to you. Your story is very important. It's a tough story, it's a sad story, it's a hard story, but it's vitally important, as you said to me earlier on, that you share this. Tell us why you're involved in Darkness to Light.
Yeah, so in 2004, my husband took his own life. He was young at the time. I had 3 young children at the time. And I suppose at that time, there was very little services available. In 2004, there was just, I suppose, the Samaritans was probably the only thing that was there. There was no permanent help, or immediate help is what I find.
Nowhere to turn to.
Nowhere to turn to, and suicide is a decision that's made in a moment. And if there's someone available in that moment, maybe someone will make a different choice. And that's why I think what Pieta do and Darkness and Light and getting that awareness is so important for people. To be aware that there is a different choice you can make. It's not the only choice.
And there is help out there.
And there's help, absolutely. Yeah.
In the aftermath, and I suppose it's something that's not talked about enough. Sometimes and rightly so, we concentrate on the individual needing help, but there's a whole ripple effect. The family, friends, and the questions and the recriminations and the what ifs are absolutely soul destroying. And that's what you feel Pieta is doing now for so many other people.
It is, absolutely.
How did you cope yourself?
Well, to be honest, there was very little services in 2004, and it was about 6 months after Dave died. I found it really difficult to get help. There was different groups and things like that, but I found it difficult to find somewhere. And it wasn't until about 6-9 months after that I actually did find some help in Aware, and I went and talked to them about suicide. And that bereavement is, I think it's like no other, because it's, as you say, there's no reason, there's no answer. And I spent years soul searching why and ifs and buts, and you can never find an answer, and I think it's a permanent solution to a very temporary problem. Nothing is forever,
Is it fair to say, Sharon, that did it bring you any level or form of comfort?
It did, but I think I'm a very strong person, so
clearly,
and I never suffered from depression, thankfully, So I did in my own way. In 2009, actually, when I did the first Darkness into Light walk, I remember that morning actually was the first morning I had any sense of peace, and that was 5 years later.
Wow!
And I think it was because I didn't feel I wasn't on my own. The people, it was a much smaller walk back then as well. There was, I'd say, 300 or 400.
But there was a sense of community and togetherness.
Absolutely, and that sense, oh my God, this has happened to so many people, and we weren't talking about it back then, as much.
That's the problem, I think, when we talk about road deaths, we talk about heart failure, we talk about cancers. There's so much money thrown at research into it, services into it. But when we talk about suicide, which is an epidemic in this country as well, there's not enough done on the ground level. We don't have enough therapists, we don't have enough psychiatrists, not a tip of the iceberg enough. No matter how much we can talk about it, and I know that's the first step, is opening up and talking. If the services aren't there, you can't do anything about it. So the money from Darkness into Light really, really does immeasurable amounts of help for people. Bring us into the process of what happens with the funds for Darkness into Light and Pieta.
So I think what you've said, Elaine, is absolutely spot on. There's so many services struggling because there's so much demand out there for, mental health. Whereas Pieta, we specialise in suicide, self-harm and bereavement through suicide. And for us to be able to sustain what we do with those services for free, with professional qualified therapists, we could depend highly and solely on the public and the generosity of the public, not just our Irish nation, as we know now, Darkness into Light is all over the world. So people are getting behind every single person who feels like they are struggling, they're in crisis, or anybody who has been bereaved through suicide, and saying you're not alone and there is help and there is hope. And as you said, Sharon, you know, it doesn't have to be like this, and this is what Pieta will do. And hopefully that is the message that Pieta gives out, and I believe it is the message that Pieta gives out.
It's quite incredible to see how big the event has got over the years. There are facts and figures around them in terms of the money that's raised. The bones of 30 million has been raised. I mean, does it blow you away as every year it's getting, obviously the last 2 years are very different, but this year, I mean, it's huge again, the amount of people who are involved, isn't it?
You know, it really does blow me away. Like, it is phenomenal the amount of people that get up at that time in the morning, put on their yellow t-shirts. I was in the Phoenix Park a couple of years ago. That was my first one anyway. And just as I got to the Pope's Cross, I looked back and just saw this sea of yellow t-shirts. And there's such an emotion in that.
I was going to say, we've watched this event over the last couple of years through the show. We've spoken to people. We've been live from the event. It's an incredibly emotional a couple of hours, isn't it?
It is. It's absolutely, yeah. I mean, I'm a volunteer. I volunteer with the MACE group, and there's lots of us down there, lots of volunteers. But you're very busy. But it's still that sense of everybody being together, and it's phenomenal. And I've actually been talking to people who've done it virtually for the last 2 years and had never done the walk, and they're so looking forward to it this year. And I'm encouraging them to come out and do it. It's such a sense of belonging, you know.
It's staggering in terms of the event getting bigger and the awareness getting bigger, but there are so many households and families that are affected by suicide and the after effects. I mean, the numbers are terrifying, aren't they?
Yeah, no, they are. Unfortunately, they are, and that is the impact of suicide, and not just somebody who's been bereaved through suicide, but somebody who's been, you know, affected by suicidal thoughts or self-harm. It really does, and we help families as well, supporting those individuals, those loved ones. So we have a service that can do that as well, where we can help support the families of loved ones.
That is very important as well, because it can be a very difficult thing to watch someone going through depressive episodes, chronic depression, suicidal thoughts, and if they're actually self-harming, and the frustration can build, and I suppose the lack of awareness, because thankfully no one knows what it's like to have depression unless you've gone through it yourself. So you wouldn't wish it on anyone, but trying to understand what's going on in a depressed person's brain is very important for the support structures around them, really, isn't it?
Yeah, no, it is. And as Sharon said, you know, it doesn't matter what time of the day it is. If somebody is feeling hopeless or in crisis, we're there. We have our 24/7 helpline service. And again, it's free, and we've qualified therapists at the other end of that line waiting for that person to make that call, to be able to support.
Help is out there.
The immediate help is so important.
Sharon, thank you so much for joining us on the show.
Thank you for coming in, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much. It's such an important thing to chat about today. And of course, for more information on tomorrow morning's event, check out darknessintolight.ie.